Welcome everyone, Dr. Thor here. Get ready for Gnosis. Now everybody should like and subscribe here and start supporting this channel more. We also can be supported on Patreon, which all these links are down below, as well as websites, etc. If you want to see someone who really knows what's going on and to get the information out there, you have to support this channel, which nobody does. I will not be showing any instruments, will not be taking anything apart in the future whatsoever. Those are things for the supporters who are on All Access and Patreon. As simple as that. So people need to participate, they need to get out there, and they need to start doing what it takes to make sure that someone with a sane, high-level understanding of life gets much better support than they do. And there's many changes that will be coming, people, including the fact of going to other mediums where I will take my content there. But everybody has to pay their way, and nobody's get anything free, particularly those who like to see and hear about radionics, is the fact that I have spent hundreds of thousands of dollars on equipment and research and other things, and there is not enough support. So I'm going to be using it for myself, as I have been doing quite well, by the way, and you won't get any of the benefits. So it's as simple as that. So people should know that. But let's talk about another issue that, of course, people are so ignorant about and don't quite understand. And that, of course, is the new UFO issue. And it's UFOs, people, not UPPP garbage goo boo. No, they're unidentified flying objects, plain and simple. And as I've labeled these in the past, these are also can be slightly modified. Of where they come from, Earth-based, space-based, and military-based. And that's how things should be. So it's an unidentified flying object that appears to be, or could be, Earth-based, extraterrestrial, meaning physical beings from another reality, or most likely it is something that is government handled. Now, if you think the government's going to come out and actually tell you what's going on, it's a joke. Now, because of the Freedom of Information Act, they have to release information if you call that releasing information. Basically, what they're doing is giving you redacted paperwork, things that have been blacked out. So a page of someone's statement and information on it, which could be, 300-400 words, there may be only 2 or 3 words that aren't blacked out. And that includes pictures and everything else. So the point is, they've done their legal obligation, which is the fact of actually releasing information, but not really, because it's not really released information. It's all covered up, and nobody really knows what this stuff that people are talking about, seeing things 20, 30, 50 years ago, that has to be blacked out. I mean, that's the insanity that we've allowed government to do. And for some reason, they're protecting us. From what? We all know that there is no protection from anything. It's just kind of a joke. It's all about the little club and those people taking care of their own special interests, which usually add up into buckaroos. And of course, because there's so much information out there right now, it's very easy to cloud the issue, to cause problems by just releasing endless amounts of documents. And from what I understand, and I'm not going to look through any of this stuff, we can have some other stooges do that, and they can say, well, I found this or that. But what do they know about anything anyway? You can't trust anybody's opinion out there other than my own, to be quite frank, because they don't really have the understanding, they haven't done the research, and basically they're brainwashed by their higher education, their lower education, or whatever they're connected to. So it's a real problem, and that's one of the natures of getting any kind of information, who you can trust and what's going on. So the UFO issue is very interesting. I don't expect any startling information. We've already had this. It's the same old story of releasing a bit of the pressure, kind of like unscrewing a top on a soda bottle to let some of the build-up carbonation out. And this somehow pacifies the public. You're never going to hear that. The complicated issue, which is so interwound with politics and the military-industrial complex and everything else, and all the economy itself, if we have new oilless technology, the entire world collapse. If we have cures, the entire world collapses. And these are looking at the higher levels. Even when we get technology, which the technology we have today is comical, you got an electric car with a computer on it done by a madman. Yeah, thank you, Elon. Yeah, we needed an electric car with poison batteries and everything else. And it's found out that those are more polluting in the long run with all the damage they do to make these electric batteries, which is a very inferior technology because battery science is really bad and just doesn't work well. And you're still just getting something which he could have made hydrogen cars, so many other things. But of course, he knows nothing. He's not an engineer. He's got a degree in physics, like almost everybody has out there, and economics. Yes, he knows no idea about any of this. He grabs people, he gives them his ideas, and tells them to make it work. Oh, that's the kind of egotistical maniac he is. The fact that this guy's given any credit whatsoever is comical. The point is, we have all sorts of extremely advanced technologies. People have been talking about this for years. One of the most recent ones, of course, with these recent disappearances, and I'm not sure how many of these are suspicious. Certainly some of them are. And I'm always surprised of how people work with their friends and how they go on hikes and other things. Well, why hike with somebody if they're 20 feet behind you? What is that all about? What a good friend you are. All these things kind of amazes me. And certainly there are some high-ranking people who, some general apparently, a retired general for 15 years he was retired. Of course, he knows a lot of stuff, obviously, and it's another amusing that your local FBI agents, etc., aren't keeping track of these people and aren't checking on them, or at least if something is heard, jumping on it, when we have an Air Force general who is working on, apparently, if the information is right, we never know, but apparently high-ranking, that was involved in a lot of secret projects. So let's ignore him. But let's check you at the airport. Let's feel up your crotch. So the whole idea is these are all the things, because we got to get the baggage. All the stuff that's going out there, it's just comical. But to think that any of this is going to be released is on. There's so many secrets, so much stuff going on, and in mass people that are being hid. And the average person knows a lot, and they're lying about it. They're involved with crime. They're supporting criminals. It goes on and on of how dirty this rotten society is. And to think that any extraterrestrial with any kind of IQ would get involved with such a horrific race is hard to believe that they would have any value whatsoever. We all know there's all sorts of strange things going on, but these sightings, particularly of ships and so forth, like triangles and everything, these are all things that are military based and have explanations. So you're looking at about 98% of what you see in the sky that you may think is a UFO is definitely hooked up to some sort of terrestrial human-made craft of some nature, military, etc. I mean, people didn't know what the spy planes, the U-2s, were years ago, and they would see these planes and they would say, well, these are extraterrestrial. And people didn't even have photographs of them until 10, 20 years later when these type of things got declassified. So all of this is part of what's going on in the bigger picture that nobody understands. Anybody who knows anyone who's been looking at the sky, people like pilots, etc., which really can't talk about things because they get into problems. Well, you're crazy. You can't be flying a plane with people. So the whole idea is that all of these people, if you know any of them, have seen all sorts of strange stuff at all sorts of very high levels. So all these things are going on for years and years and years. These disappearances are a little bit strange. On the other hand, people are not happy. Just because they're scientists doesn't mean that they aren't sick or don't kill themselves. But it is strange, particularly if you get a very high-ranking general who apparently is physically well and everything else. So, people get sick and everything else, and they may want to. It's amazing how calm his wife was when she reported the general missing. And she acted like, well, he's been gone. And there's no explanation, because the first thing I would do as a dispatcher, which I have worked at in the past, is to say, well, were you arguing? Did you have problems? Has he done this before? None of this came out. She talked like she was ordering a pizza. Oh, my husband is gone. He's been gone for a few hours. He changed his clothes. Oh, it's just a tea time. Would you like to come over and have tea with me? So the whole idea is this is kind of frightening. She also was using apparently her maiden name, or maybe they're not married. I think she said her husband, though, but very strange that we have these kind of things. And of course, he was not a young man either. So maybe he was fed up with such a boring wife and decided to leave his other life behind. God knows what these people did with putting bank accounts in other places. You know, you don't need to take a lot with you as long as you know where your money is and can get to it. So, who knows what's going on with these people, but certainly it is suspicious, especially people that have high clearances and have worked on secret projects. And just even amazes me that these people live out in the middle of nowhere, and apparently nobody really cares what they're doing when they're basically, their head is filled with secrets. But you got to remember, this guy has been retired for 15 years. So the whole idea is that that's a long time. But again, there's all sorts of strange things that happen. The other one is this woman who was hiking with friends. I'm not sure they were hiking, and I wouldn't call them friends. Apparently, she was about 30 feet behind others, or even a small group, and that's fine. Let's just run ahead. We don't need to hike it together while we're here. So you get all the nonsense that you get together. So, and of course, this person apparently was not sick or anything else. To think that somebody grabbed them, well, there certainly is a good way to grab somebody, especially watching something like this, staging it, being in a remote area where you can hide, in ditches, behind trees, whatever. Waiting for somebody to kind of drop behind a little bit. So nobody knows anything, and of course, these distances seem to turn into miles that people don't know what's going on. But you can disappear quickly or want to, especially again if you're in a rural situation where you can run to a place, hide behind trees, fall in a ditch. Anybody who's done any real hiking can understand that. And there's a lot of very dangerous hiking places. I don't believe it was the case with this, but there are places which they have drop-offs and all sorts of things that you can easily hurt yourself or disappear because you just fall off the side of a path. Which is more common than you think. But this is very strange. Another thing is the despondency of people and them committing suicide, such as the woman who was researching anti-gravity. Again, from what I could see from her, she was in her late 30s, maybe 40s. Female who, I don't know if she had any depression or other problems, but generally, everybody's depressed. Everybody's having problems. Most people don't kill themselves. But, suicide is not unknown. It's fairly frequent, and people get despondent. And this can easily happen. But it's also a very convenient way to get rid of somebody. Especially somebody who just went on TV and said, well, I found anti-gravity, and this has been covered up 4 times previously. Well, this is pretty shocking, people. And I know they've had anti-gravity technology for over 50 years. This is not overly shocking either. People have witnessed anti-gravity military crafts for decades. This is all part of the reverse engineering, supposedly, or maybe somebody just figured it out. They took Einstein's book, and they did what you should do with that, place it next to your toilet and use it as paper, and his thoughts and all the other dumbademia who's brought us absolutely nothing but put us in a little box that nothing really happens. But the people in charge continue to protect their position and raise their salaries every year. So the whole idea is that, and of course Einstein's been totally disproven, as we all know, anybody who has done any research in that area. It's a bogus belief system that holds no value, as all traditional physics is. But don't ask Elon Musk, he's going to get us to Mars that takes 8 months to get there with the technology we have now. I guess an electric car in space, he's going to put a little motor on that. The problem is there's no charging stations in space, but I'm sure he's got an answer for that. So the whole idea is we run into all these problems. The point is, after talking about this and going public with it, that she would commit suicide is extremely suspicious. But these are facts, and there's a lot more of it. There's tunnels all over the United States, and for that matter, all over the world, and have been used. And we can't get any straight answers from anybody. We can't even find out and get the information on the tunnels that are underneath Egypt all over the place, because there's massive tunnel networks, as there is almost everywhere, by the way. This is a whole thing that is not discussed much, but there are massive tunnel systems, and of course, massive tunnel systems, particularly stretching across the United States, where trucks go in and everything else. These have been verified as well, and people have talked about it. But to get into something extremely shocking is the fact of this anti-gravity, because we have anti-gravity, which means we don't need all these comic book low-level dinosaur tools that we have. Internal combustion engines, silly little batteries. All of this stuff is worthless. But what runs the world? What is the whole world up in arms about right now? They don't have any energy. We need gas. Apparently, natural gas we make everything out of, including fertilizer. So we can't even grow food because we don't have natural gas. This continues to keep up, then the fact is massive shortages will happen, and further huge price increases will happen, and there will be more and more chaos so that people can be controlled more and more. But I've been acquainted with all of these things, with extraterrestrials and so forth, which I did work on about 50 years ago. I really not have any interest in that anymore and have not been involved in it. But those are whole other issues as well. All of these grays and everything else, my conclusion of them, of course, things have changed since 50 years ago. These are androids, and why wouldn't you send an android out instead of sending yourself, risking your life, being away from your family, etc.? So all of these grays most likely are androids. We have no idea what's going on with them. There apparently are interdimensional species, and there are just physical people coming from other planets because they figured out how to get by these amazingly vast different distances that the universe is. I mean, the distance away that a lot of supposedly habitable planets are literally would take hundreds of years to get there. It's just mind-boggling of how anybody's going to get past these distances, etc. So if they do, they're using an extremely advanced technology to somehow jump from, literally millions of light years away to come to some other place. So all of that is quite interesting as we get into it. But I have personally seen anti-gravity from about 500 feet away with I believe that they call those B-1 type bomber things, in a strange incident that I had, and you can find that on my channel, but I've seen it. I even had a witness with me that was rare, and I may go over that case yet again and talk about it just for all those who miss it, because nobody finds anything on your channel. I have 1,700 videos, and generally, once something is a few months old, you never get any more views on it unless it's a very more of a how-to video. So the whole idea is that I've seen it personally. I've had witnesses with me, which even is odd in this particular instance. And the reason why the bomber came down to be seen is because, ironically, super advanced technology, that these anti-gravity machines have great trouble when there is lightning. And there's a giant lightning storm, which was rare in this area, but they had to get out of it and come down, and they actually did that. And they weren't hovering, they were sitting there. Hovering conjures up visions of helicopters. 100% silent, etc. So, and I've seen that, as I said, 500 feet away, as I was driving through a tiny town that was 100% deserted at that time because everybody was inside because of this terrible thunderstorm, and I was on the road traveling. So we know this is a reality. So if that's a reality, what else is a reality? But we've had these people talking about extraterrestrials, talking about all these, the Tic Tacs. What kind? This is the crap you get from these people. There are no decent photographs of anything still in this day and age. Everybody's got a cell phone, but we have very few good photographs. There has been a few, including some surveillance cameras that picked up what apparently were blue glowing beings that were in the street. But of course, all of this stuff is debunked as being fake and everything else. But there are thousands of those things. So the fact that we don't have proper photographs is, of course, not entirely true. But we should have a lot more. And there really isn't a lot of stuff that people are producing. We have to wonder why, since everybody's carrying around not a phone, but they're carrying around a camera, a recorder, voice recorders, etc. But one of the strange things that happens as a person who does carry this equipment and is semi-ready to use it is that when something happens, you don't think to take a picture of it. At least, I don't think most people react by the fact, let's get a picture of that. That occurs to them a little bit later, and usually by then it's too late. But there are plenty of pictures out there. But to think that somehow the government is going to release all this stuff and that you're going to get any kind of good information out of it is ridiculous. But there are thousands and thousands of pages of this stuff, and it's all been gone over carefully. It's all been redacted. You know, the big black marker pen has come out and marked through everything. This is notorious. NASA did this with pictures of the moon and other things. Everything that you get in the media has been filtered. A lot of it has been changed or blurred or whatever it takes, so an anomaly is always in question, similar to the face on Mars and everything else. So it's an endless problem here. And the problem is they've lied to you for so long. But what's really tied in here is the disruption of human society, not by the fact that people understand that there are extraterrestrials here, physical beings from another planet. But the bottom line is that there's this super advanced technology, probably at least 100 or 200 years ahead of what we are being offered today, which is quite a jump. And they have never used this. So the game is up. You know, people have always said we need this, we need that. There is no that corruption. There is none of this stuff. You know, we need the oil, everything. Well, it's just not true. We have all sorts of free energies that work and can be used everywhere. And we're going into another phase where energy is really needed with all these data centers. You know, we have all this new data we want to put online, all this AI and garbage, which most of it is pretty garbage. It's still pretty bad, people. I mean, a lot of it's very helpful, and they're generating products that are kind of shiny and nice. But, you know, when you get in there and you look at it and you kind of rub it and make it shine a little more, it's a turd. And you can only shine it so much. So the whole idea is a lot of that. Like, I'm getting a lot of thumbnails that they spell words on it wrong. Well, apparently, AI doesn't know how to spell. And I've got this hundreds of times. Now, it certainly is helpful, but we're also getting what is known information just repeated back to us because there's no thinking going on. People aren't making decisions, or I should say computers aren't making decisions. They're regurgitating what's out there in the system, and they figured out a way to do this, which in some ways is quite interesting. In other ways, it's really poor. So, and you're going to get the information that's available and what they want to give you, the ultimate control of information. And of course, a lot of people that want to make their job easier and want to push out stuff that apparently works okay, like to use AI and really produce this very vanilla, this very boring, middle of the road information and quality. But you know, most things is middle of the road and pretty bad anyway. But that's really not what people should be doing. They should be doing work that is high quality and something new. But why do rote stuff, meaning the same old stuff over and over again? That's why we have production lines and machines to do repetitive tasks. Why have a person do that? There's no reason to do that. And a lot of business, writing letters, even putting up websites, I mean, there's a structure there that they're all the same. Do you need to do that? Well, no. You should go in there and refine it. That's what should be happening. So there is a use for this to a degree, but it's pretty mediocre stuff. The bottom line is, vanilla is still a nice flavor, a good ice cream, but it is vanilla. So it is the same old, same old. And while it ain't bad, it ain't really good either. So, and a lot of societies are like that around the world. Most industries are like that as well. They're not terrible, but they're certainly not great. This could be said of many people, places, and things. So to think that the government and the people involved with all the secrets are going to let anything out or not, and one way, of course, to confuse people, which is what's happened, and I've in the generation that has seen how all this has changed. I mean, in the 80s, even into the 90s and 2000, accessing information was difficult. Where do you find it? Until everything became online, and that's probably only been in the last 10 years, more and more stuff is online. But if you wanted to get information, well, you went to your library and you'd look there and say, well, this is a rare book I want. I haven't seen that anywhere. And you would order it and they would get it from another library. This is what you did. Think of the time-consuming effort that took. Or you would hunt for rare books. Like I've spent many hours in rare bookstores around the world looking through books to find out if this is a rare and interesting book that I could benefit from. Because most books go out of print and even go into public domain, and that information is lost. That's really a shame with something that can be easily reproduced and still continue to be offered. So this is what you had to do. So it's arduous, and you had to spend hours and hours on all these places hunting through things. This one, library science, was so important, and of course nobody wanted to be involved in library science, as they still don't want to be. But finding information is critical even in this time now. Before, it was the fact that it was difficult to find anything. Now what we have is that you find everything. So you go into a subject matter and there's 10,000 articles, books, and other things on that subject matter that you can access. That's worse than having too little. So and how do you know what's good? You're going to have to sit there and go through thousands or at least hundreds of books, articles, etc., to try and find something that will educate you. And most people don't have the mentality to do that. And the bottom line, it's not really what you know, it's how you interpret it and how you apply it. And very few people can interpret information and apply it. We see this particularly in all the supplement research cases, etc., where people are reading these basically tests that went on, where they tested some sort of supplement, and it's really just bogus nonsense, and they don't understand how to read those or interpret those particular trials at all. So what we have is a bunch of garbage that is easily manipulated, like most things that have huge number of pages to it or large volumes, is you basically can find these things and make them say anything that you want. What's classical with this is, of course, religious documents, particularly the Bible, which is such a confused bunch of mess, and you can pretty much find everything in there. And you can manipulate it, and there's the Bible codes, the numbers. All of the things would go on and on with these things, and it's just endless nonsense. So once you have too much information, that's what you run into, and then the people interpreting it are really just stooges that have no value whatsoever. So this is what we have to understand as a particular researchers, etc. And being a professional researcher like I have for over 50 years, this is a rare skill, and it takes a very particular mind and a person who doesn't believe in, oh, this guy wrote this book, this is the definitive word. No, that's that person's opinion, regardless of how educated or uneducated they are, or basically how much dogma they believe. So they're a big-time researcher, have PhDs, went to great schools. So what? Do they know how to interpret the information? I can tell you right now they don't. So this is a serious problem that everybody has to understand. And that's where we're at now. So we have loads of information, which, what do they mean? What's the value of it? How is it interpreted? Where did it come from? How complete it is? And I went through all this as a researcher, particularly of ancient texts, which I was the first one to really publish and translate all the major, quote, grimoires, ancient scientific magical texts. And we went through the different versions of it, different languages, and you find all the inconsistencies. You find how one is different than the other and what the words are. And what does it all mean? Did the people who wrote this, were they really serious? Or was this pulp fiction? And really what it comes down to is most written books were pulp fiction. They were selling this stuff, and they put a lot of stuff, a lot of good stuff, a lot of bad stuff, I should say, in with the good stuff. So to think that people were able to do what these books stated, which are pretty clear on what you have to do, and were able to achieve these supernatural abilities is just nonsense. They were put in there to get you to buy the book. Now, does that make the entire book bad? Well, no, but you have to understand where you're coming from and how you interpret it. So most things are pulp fiction. People are not going to buy things. They're not going to listen to you. They're not going to participate in a group of things unless you give them Hollywood, you give them fun, you make stories up. Oh, this guy walked on water. All this stuff. And, these stories tend to be very repetitive. If you go out through history, you'll find the same stories, the same flood stories, the same births, all the same stuff. You hear time and time again that people died and rose. I mean, this is the same old bad tune that needs to be put to bed once and for all. And we got to start looking at comic book acts and start getting into what does it mean. If you believe in all that stuff, we'll start acting like you claim these great books tell you to do. So wonderful and loving and everything else. And where is that? You don't find it anywhere. You'll find hate, lying, and pretty much any religious person, and that means from any religious background, you can pretty much guarantee that they are very corrupt people. Because that's why they're in religion, because they think somehow they're hedging their bet that because they're rotten people and believe in something, that in the end, they'll con their gods. Because that's what it really is. I'm a bad guy, but I believe in you. Hey, we got my seat ready and a cupcake? So this is, of course, what's going on with society in general. But to think that we're going to get anything out of these UFO papers is comical. We've now had for several years these people coming out, the Tom DeLonges, the Tic Tacs. Oh, we're going to find him, we're going to do this. And they've went out and taken this stuff, and they're making a lot of money off of it. People are paying them now, supposedly in more entrepreneurial type ways. People are funding them, or I should say non-governmental funds, to go check all this stuff out and be researchers. Well, how nice. Because nobody else is going to do that. The government's not going to pay you to investigate all these kind of things. And that's the way it should be. Let private money go out there and find out what's going on. These people have produced nothing. It's been at least a year or two now since these people came out and said they were going to do it. And they produce nothing. And it goes with everything else involved in this. And the bottom line is that getting out information that is very sensitive in nature, as we know, we're talking about people disappearing in this talk right now. So, and this is people that are working on real projects. You think they're going to give that out? No, they're going to give you 1 million pages of documents that have been redacted. Anything of any value has been taken out of it. You can't piece it together, and it's going to be meaningless. But they followed through in what they said they were going to do. So the bottom line is that they released the information. Here it is. You figure it out. Yeah, it's worthless. And that's, of course, what's always been done. And this whole look into UFOs and everything else, all of this needs to end. This is a complete waste of time. We have serious issues. We have planets that are dying. We have ourselves that are dying. We have a massive base of people. Everybody's sick. Everybody's struggling. The planet is polluted. We need to take care of things here and now. We have plenty of technology to take care of all this, and we need to stop wasting our time chasing these ridiculous areas that have no value. Who cares how the pyramids were made? Who cares if there's bases under the water? When they produce and show themselves, then we'll figure. But everything is covered up anyway. Anything of value, no matter where you find it, whether it's in Egypt or South America or under the water, you never get anything from it. And people are out there, as is very typical of Havas in Egypt, which won't tell you anything of what's happening, and they cover up absolutely everything. And there are endless undergrounds all over this planet that are very shocking, and you don't hear any of it, and you rarely see any kind of photographs or anything else of these things. So it's a waste of time. We have critical issues we have to take care of, and we need to move all of our interests away from all of this nonsense, which is going to produce nothing, to what? What are we going to learn from the pyramid? Oh, how to do that? Well, we haven't learned anything. And when we do find anything of value, it's all covered up and suppressed. It's a waste of time. We should be spending our money and taking care of the billions of sick people out there, the retarded people, all the problems we have, the animals, cleaning up our planet, cleaning up our food supplies. This is where our time and money needs to go into. We don't need to live in some fantasy world of spaceship people and everything else. It gets you nothing. The bottom line, as I've made other videos, is the fact is that not a single contactee in the last 67, maybe 100 years now, has ever come back with any practical information whatsoever. None. And the great Palladian contact in Switzerland, who is now in his 80s, has brought us nothing. Billy Myers has done nothing. Neither has all these orb stuff by whatever that guy's name is now. None of this has produced anything of value, etc. And getting pictures of orbs in space, which this guy recently did, is valueless. Having pictures of crafts flying around your property is worthless. There's nothing followed by that. There's no practical information. As I asked supporters of Billy Myers many months ago, read all. I've read his books. They're trash. They're philosophical mumbo jumbo. Tell me where the practical information is what I asked this guy 10 or 15 times. Not a single one. Go to his website. He's listed his books, which are mostly in very controlled and horrible language of German, which means it can mean almost anything. There's nothing there. They haven't even bothered to translate that into a language that the world can use easily. But there is nothing there. There's no practical information, and because of that, there's absolutely no market for this crap. But this guy's been doing this 70 years now, and he has absolutely nothing to show for it but some very sketchy and even problematical pictures of spaceships, which may or not be real or not. And who cares if they are real? Why can't you get better photographs? Why can't you get a close-up shot of somebody? Oh, they don't want to do that, but it's okay to take pictures of crap. This is nonsense. So we have no proof. Not a single person has done anything that claims they are extraterrestrial contacts, have any kind of valid or important information to share with the public. And at the bottom line is that's what counts. The same thing with this. If we have good pictures and other things, what does that mean? It means nothing. So what if we have 70, 80, what if there are thousands of good photographs in these release papers? What does that mean? It's meaningless. What happens if we have pictures of extraterrestrials? Oh, they got 20 bodies over here. Unless we actually find the bodies and identify them as non-human, it is worthless. And even after we do that, what does that mean? It means nothing. We're sinking in quicksand, and you got people standing next to you saying, hey, look at the bird in the sky over there. Shouldn't you pay attention to the fact that your head's going to be under that quicksand in a couple of minutes? Well, no, I'm worried about that thing flying over there. This is what you get from the morons, the stooges, the people caught up in their comic book religions and their fake politics, when they all are really evil people that only care about one thing, and that's taking care of themselves and money. Because that's what it all comes down to. That's what all these researchers do. They're making money off of it. They're believing in their fictitious realities, just like all the religions. Well, really, aren't they just businesses? That's really what it comes down to. And it's almost comical as particularly these wealth pastors go out there and tell you that you're going to get wealthy by giving them money, and they fly around in $1 million jets. This is the kind of